Hello, I'm John O'Hara with CDC Network. On March the 15th, our country experienced a historical decision. At that time, many individuals was told to stay at home because their job was considered as non-essential. Only the essential workers was allowed to go to work on that Monday, March the 16th. Many thought that was a good thing because they thought that there was a day off of being paid, but many of them did not have the idea that on June the 7th, 2020, that we would still be at home today. Because of this pandemic, many homes have been affected, both the have and the have not. As of last month, 38 million individuals have filed for unemployment. As of May of 2020, 1.6 million homes are behind on their mortgage. Because of this pandemic, it should cause every individual to pause for a moment to take an intense inventory of their finances. And because of that reason, I am here in the home with Bill and Sherry Goodson. And they are going to just share some things with us that I believe that will be very, very helpful to you as you are perhaps having to restructure, realign, or take inventory on what's next to do from here on out. Because change isn't change until it's changed. And today, our objective is to give you principles that will enable you to be much better in your finances. And because of that reason, I'm going to now allow Bill and Sherry to share truth with us that has brought them to this point. Brother Bill,
Yes.
could you just clarify with us very quickly the meaning of debt-free living? You know, in this pandemic that we're in now, this has caused many individuals to take inventory. What is this thing about debt-free living? I hear it all the time, but what is debt-free living?
Well, to Cherry and me, it's not owing anything to anybody for any reason other than, taxes and maybe a house payment or your insurance, but not having any other debt that you can deal with. I like to talk about what is debt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what I got here on this piece of paper I learned is debt. I owe, so off to work I go. Well, you can't go to work during this time, so what are you going to do, right? Well, debt is monies that's owed to a second party. And when you think about that, there are two kinds of debt. Most people probably don't even realize that. There's secured and unsecured debt. Debt that's secured is incurred through things like loans or liens or mortgages, on such things as houses and cars, sometimes furniture even. Unsecured are debts that's through lines of credit, i.e. credit cards. I like to talk about those. Personal loans, which you have no specific underlying asset or security. They can come take your house if you got a secured loan, but if you've got one like you bought a phone, they don't take your phone. They don't care about that.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Why is it, based on what you are sharing with us, why is it important that one should desire to become debt-free?
Oh, gosh, there's lots of reasons. I like to look at the Bible first. James 4:13 and 14 says, "Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money." Why? You don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. What is your life? Are you a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes? We assume that nothing's going to change. The pandemic showed us that it can change and change very, very fast. So it reduces stress. You'll be able to pay your bills. That's, to me, debt-free living is what it's all about. It takes a lot of pressure off of you. It gives you freedom.
Okay. Based on that, and prior to Charles setting up, you shared with me that this quest that you and Sharon has been on began in 1983.
That's right.
What circumstances was there something happened that causes you both to recognize that I need to make a turn?
Yes, it did, Jonathan. Cherry and I had recently then moved from Katy, Texas to Austin, Texas, and we had a house in Katy, that we had a mortgage on, and we moved to Austin. We had three children there with us, and we bought a house there, but we hadn't sold the house in Houston. And so in a matter of about a year, we accumulated quite a bit of debt. We had a $30,000 swing note to buy the house in Austin. We hadn't sold the house in Houston. We had a mortgage on it every month, things like that. And so that had us stressed. It was kind of like people are today, I guess, without a job. I had a job, but it was eating up all the money we had. Therefore, I put this girl to work, to help with it. And it's interesting, during that time that she was working, she was making pretty good money. We were saving it to pay off some of these debts we had. We also had a daughter going to a Baptist college, which is very expensive because they're not state-funded schools, So those things are expensive. And so we saved this money, and we were trying to be good stewards of God's money at the same time. And December rolled around, and Lottie Moon and the offerings and like that. And God told us that we needed to give all that money we saved to Lottie Moon. So it wasn't our money anyway, And anyway, we were in a lot of pressure. Well, thank goodness our church invited a man, an evangelist named Mike Gilchrist, to come, and he was a financial evangelist. Quite a man. Had a great story. He came and did a breakfast on Saturday morning and talked about what he was going to talk about. And that just perked our interest. Said, wow, God brought this guy here for us to learn how to get out of debt. And so he started on Sunday night, and then he went through Thursday. And it's funny, after the Sunday night sermon on how to get out of debt, Cherry and I were so convicted that he was there to show us how to get out of debt.
Let's pause there for a moment, because when you say you all were convicted, I know that many times when individuals, they hear of something, it's like water on duck's back. Yeah. But you're saying that you and Sherry, when you heard it, it just caused you all for a moment in time, you just pause and say, wow, we need to do something. This cycle needs to be broken tonight.
Exactly.
And, we just knew God was speaking to us. It just seemed like Mike was there just for the two of us, because everything he said, it hit us right dead center. So I called him the next day where he was staying in a hotel and asked him if he would give Cherry and I 30 minutes before the Monday night service. And he did. And Mike came, he listened to our story. He was very special on that. And the first thing out of his mouth was, why did I put Cherry to work? And of course, I sat there a minute and go, well, fear is the only thing I could think of. We were trying to make our bills, make our ends meet. And then he said, did you ask God if Cherry could go to work? And I went, no, I didn't. He said, you might want to rethink that. And what's interesting is we prayed about that night. And the next day, Cherry gave 2-week notice.
Let's pause there for a moment, and we're going to move forward. But when he asked that question, did you ask God? So often, we as the head of our household, we often believe that it takes two incomes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say this very slowly, because we're not saying that a spouse should not work, but
That's
we are
exactly
saying
right.
that from a person of faith, we should always honor God, and we should always go to God for his leading and guidance.
Exactly.
Okay, because sometimes God may want to show us that he is the provider.
That's exactly what it was. And we didn't know that at the time. But he sure proved that over the next couple of years to us for sure. And anyway, it was scary, but God was telling us she needs to be home taking care of those kids, and I'll take care of your money situation.
So from that decision, you both began on this quest to become debt free in 24 months.
We did.
So that's bringing us to our next question.
Yeah.
How did you and Sherry become debt free, and what principles can you give to those who are watching this video?
Yeah.
How can they become debt free? You know, we hear about Dave Ramsey, we hear about Larry Burkett, we hear about, you know, many other
Ron
Blue, great teachers of finance, but we hear it, but we don't apply it.
Right.
So what is the first key what is the very first key?
For us, if I may,
Go
for
ahead.
us, it was, we had to do it together.
Yeah.
We had to be committed. We, like Bill said, felt like God had sent Mike Gilchrist just to us. We were so desperate for help. And we sat down with our children. We had 3 and told them what we were going to do, that it was going to be a couple of years of watching every penny. Bill will tell you more about that, but it was nothing extra. We're going to give up eating out. We're going to give up movies. We're going to give up any kind of entertainment. We as a family are committing to do this. I wanted them, was concerned about what they might have to do without, but I was more concerned about teaching them about finances and God's provision. And it had to be all of us. It couldn't just be Bill, couldn't just be me. And they were surprisingly good about all of it. Some of them were teenagers. And but the necessities we had to buy, if they outgrew shoes or whatever. But you know, Jonathan, even that we prayed. When we went to buy something, God, give us a good deal. We're trying. You know what our hearts are. You know we're trying to get out of debt. So make this money, spread this money out, help us figure out how to buy what we need and be able to pay cash for it.
So it's safe to say that in a household, everybody has to be on board.
Yes.
That's true. If they are, it makes it easy on everybody in the family, and because they understand what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to learn what God, how He's going to get us out of debt. You know, He didn't even come in there and give us a paycheck. He's going to have us earn it.
Yes.
Then, you know, also, Bill, it goes back to what we had discussed earlier today about pay now and play later.
That's exactly right.
You both pay the price to become debt free.
We did.
And now you are enjoying the fruit of your decision.
For many years now.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
Many years.
It's really not. You know, some of the initial things that came up was Proverbs 13:11. And I got this from Ron Blue. And basically, just to give you the 3 points out of it, is we realize that God owns it all. We don't own anything. You know, he gave us the house we're in, the cars we're driving, the jobs we had, our children. He gave us everything. So we knew that. We felt strong in that. And number 2 was money is never an end in itself. Okay? But it's merely a resource used to accomplish other goals and obligations. And then number 3, I love this one, spend less than you earn and do it for a long, long time, and you will be financially successful. And it's so, so true.
You know, let me revisit that for a moment, because one of the first things you said that it all belongs to God.
Yeah.
Prior to this interview, I asked you the question, not today, but in past, how important is it for a believer to honor God by putting God first and giving God a tenth of what rightfully belongs to Him? Now, I know that today, where we hear that that's not biblically, we don't have to give God a tenth, but what has been you and Sherry experience of honoring God? And could you expound on what that means? What does that mean to you all?
Yeah.
When you say honor God?
That's another whole lesson as far as tithing, because I was a Christian and knew about tithing, but when Bill and I married, I felt like it needed to come from him. He was the head of the house. We were in a church service and they were teaching about tithing, and then Bill went through a class and they were teaching about tithing. So we started talking about it. And we really, there again, felt convicted that that's what we should do. Now, did we have the money to do that? Not really. But we were so convicted about it. And so we wrote that first check, and we prayed that we'd be able to write the second check and the third check. And we finally realized that we had to quit looking at the bottom line of our checkbook. God had that taken care of. But we've been tithing for, all our married life now. And that, but I also feel like tithing is just the beginning. That's what God commands us to do.
Yes.
But when you're debt free, you have the ability to do other things in the kingdom. We've been able to help with missionary projects. We've been able to buy washers and dryers, whatever the need was. And when we were in debt, we couldn't do that. We'd never been able. We could have charged it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it honestly started with the tithing. And we saw how God provided.
And we learned that it says in the Bible that the tithe is first.
Yeah. We never missed that.
We set that as a goal. And when we got paid, that 10% went straight to God. And no questions asked.
Okay. So that brings me back to the question on getting out of debt within 24 months. Mm-hmm. During those 24 months, did you all tithe?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Now,
I can tell we've never, ever not tithed.
Okay. Now, walk us through briefly the blueprint on how can I get out of debt within 24 months and honor God.
Very good. I'll do as briefly as I can. I've got 5 pages of notes, but I'll briefly go through them. First thing we've already talked about, you got to make the commitment to God, to Jesus, and his principles on finance. And, that's why I like to show this book right here. Larry Burkett wrote that. When people say, well, what's the Bible all about? What's the number one theme? It's love. The number 2 theme is finances. You think God thinks finances is important? If it's the number 2 thing, look at, those are just verses on finances right there. That tells you something right there. It's important to God.
What is your favorite verse on finances?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
Just one.
I think Matthew, when I think about Matthew 6:19, where it says, don't store up for yourselves, what thieves on earth and moths will eat and rust will destroy, and where thieves will break into your house and all that. Don't store that. You don't need to. That was one of the principles we used when we were getting out of debt, is we look at an item and say, now, is this something a moth would eat, or is somebody going to want to steal it? Is it going to rust? And we said, yeah, okay, we got rid of it.
Okay.
And that was an important verse to us. Some of the other things we did is we set some goals on how to be debt free. And Mike Gilchrist was how to be in debt free in 24 months. Actually, it took us a little bit less than that, thank goodness. It took the entire family. It really did. We were unified. That helps. We listed all our expenditures by priority, i.e. just a few. Food, we've got to have food.
Yes.
Clothing, cable TV,
no.
Really. Rental videos, really. Going to the movies, eating out, those things had to go.
Yes.
They had to go. But it was only for 24 months. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we discontinued all expenditures that were non-essential. Okay. This is not forever. It's just for a short time, 24 months. Guys have to give up their toys for a period. I'm one of those. I like woodworking, and I was shooting guns and all kind of stuff back then. We sold things, got anything, like I said, that rust or moth or thieves, got rid of those things. Anything that had high depreciation that you might have charged, if it had a high depreciation rate, get rid of it. Because you can't make anything off of it anyway, and so we got rid of those. We had garage sales.
Bill had a lot of equipment with his rifle making
Yeah.
that we were able to sell and made quite a profit on.
Yeah, we did.
And so that helped the money situation go by quicker, I think, than maybe other people might have. But we had a lot of high dollar items from his hobby. And
Well, let's pause there for a moment. Regardless if it's a high dollar item,
Yeah,
you both or you were willing to let it go.
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
And I think that's so important because any individual that is in debt, they have something
Oh, yeah.
that they can let go.
Exactly.
But so often we would say, no. I'm not going to give this up. I got to have this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With that mentality, that is going to delay you further.
Yes, it will.
And
It slows
becoming,
it, really slows it down. I mean, the things that are important is paying your house notes, paying your electric bill, paying for food. You got to eat.
Yes.
But all that other stuff is that's not that necessary.
Okay.
And we learned to live without it.
Yeah.
We ate a lot of
And we
hamburger
did not,
helper.
I never felt ever that we suffered.
We didn't suffer.
It was so exciting to see the debt get smaller and smaller and see how God
Yeah.
blessed us over. I mean, I look around me now and it's like I would have never in my imagination thought that we could live where we live today. And that's a blessing from God. But I also realize I don't own this place. God's loaned it to us. Somebody else will own it one day. And if you can just let go of your stuff and realize it's all God's. It's I mean, we could, if we had to move tomorrow, it'd be okay because our peace and what we have that God has allowed us to use has been a blessing, but it's not necessary even in our lives today.
That's so true.
Amen.
Some other things is ask God to give you some ideas. Pray. God, what can I do? Tell me something else I can sell, or what little hobby show can I go to and maybe sell this or that, like my gun stuff. God eventually sold that house in Houston or in Katy. And we made a whole $1,000 off of it. But hey, it helped pay off the debt and we got it off our back. So actually we made more than that because we got the $1,000 cash, but we got that monthly payment we didn't have to pay. And the insurance that went with it.
And that was from God also. I mean, those little things, that was a big thing, but those things that you see God working on, where it came from. It just encourages you to keep on and see where this story is going to go.
Yeah.
Because Bill's company bought that house. They never buy houses.
Never do that.
But that was a God thing. So you're not on this journey alone by any means.
No, you're not.
God is in the middle of all.
We did everything we could to honor God and give him the credit, and I still do, I hope. Cars have huge depreciations. And we had a car with payments, and in that 24 months, we paid that car off. And you can see why some of those things were happening, and great. And what we started doing was putting a car payment in the bank. So the next car we bought would be cash. Okay, and till this day, we've always paid cash for a car. And that's been a lot of years ago. And that works out. You don't have to buy a new car, folks.
No.
Used cars are way cheaper than new ones. Anyway, we began spending on a cash basis, which to me is extremely important. Because, it's funny when you start looking at statistics, people that use credit cards and pay minimum payment on that credit card per month, they overspend by 27% versus cash. If they were going to buy something with cash versus buying that on time, they overspend that's a big raise, 27%.
Yes, and let's pause there for a moment. With this shutdown that many homes many individuals are experiencing, they are saying that online shopping has skyrocketed.
Oh, yes, I can imagine.
So as it's skyrocketing, that means that more debt is being added to that
You
household.
can bet
Right.
on that.
Right.
I haven't seen any statistics on that yet, but it's
But you know
got
it's
to
true.
be frightening. Yeah.
You know it's true.
I mean, a lot of people are maxing out credit cards, I'm sure. One of the key elements for us was to get rid of credit cards. And a lot of people go, what? Listen, Mike Gilchrist called it plastic surgery.
Mhm.
I love that term. Get rid of it. Get them out of there. Start paying cash. Don't, like Cherry said earlier, if there's something you desire, give it 72 hours or so. And if you still desire it and you're talking to God about it, He might even give it to you. You never know. He'll help you find a better way to get it. Other things you could do, we didn't do this, but you can consider additional work. Mike says there's 40 hours in a work week. That leaves 128 hours for you to do additional work. I go, well, I guess you can give up sleep. The point is to pay off the debt and get debt free. Here's some of the conditions of debt that I wrote down. One of them is your liability exceeds your assets. Does people know what that means? Your bills are past due. I'm sure during this pandemic, there's a lot of past due bills. Depreciating items are worth less than their balance due. Could you imagine that? You can't sell it and pay it off.
Yeah.
No.
Outgoing income exceeds conditions requiring credit to operate. You don't want to do that. You want to get away from that. You're forced into what's called survival mode. And boy, Proverbs 22:7 touched home. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And that is so, so true. We become slave to interest is what it is.
Yes. Yes.
At that time when we were looking at statistics, I read the statistics where people buy Christmas on time. That 90% of those people were still paying for Christmas in August.
Yes.
8 months.
Yeah.
That's crazy. When you think about it, it's numbers.
Yeah. Well, let's ask you a question. So, at the end, in your case, you all became debt free within under 24 months.
Yes.
So, once you became debt free, what was the next plan that you executed?
The next plan we did is we had to understand how we actually spent money. Let me borrow that sheet from you.
Are you going to get into like paying off your smallest bill and then the next bill? I mean, that's where we started. We paid completely off when we had a garage sale or sold Bill's equipment. We'd pay off the smallest credit card, smallest debt, and then pay that off, and then apply the money to the next one and the next one. And that's the way we began, with the smallest debt, not spreading it out, but just making a big payment on the smallest and making sure we had that paid off, and then we had extra money to put on the next one and the next one. And that's kind of how we began.
Mm-hmm.
That really, really worked well, and I highly recommend doing that. So, but once you get to that point where you're out of debt, there's many other things you can do. But the thing I highly recommend, and it works extremely well, is what I call how you spend your money. Most people have no clue how they spend their money. I didn't. We didn't. So what we did is I made this sheet here. I call it one-step analysis, 1 month of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you that form. Anyway, it's just a spreadsheet thing. And what we did have every day of the month, and we both carried this sheet. Mm-hmm. And no matter what we bought, if it was 10 cents even, we wrote it down on here. And then at the end of the month, we looked at all the different descriptions and categories and saw how it fits into a budget, more or less, and go, well, this is unnecessary. We didn't have some of the problems that I've had students that have gone through this before do. They did this, and they found out they were spending $80 a month on Cokes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, a week. You know, they were going to McDonald's every day after they picked the kids up, and when they added it up, it was $80 a week. That's a big raise. You know, and I went, wow, that boy, when they quit buying Cokes, they became debt free pretty quick. So you got to know how you spend your money.
So that template there
Yeah.
allows the individual to have a blueprint.
Exactly.
Because the Bible speaks of where there's no vision, we perish. So
Right.
this
Exactly.
here enables us to establish a blueprint, and it also serves as a check.
Yep.
As a check for us to see exactly
Exactly.
where we're spending and where the spending is going.
Right. And if it's stuff that's useless, then you just quit doing it. You know, I mean, you got to quit. And even after we were debt free, you tighten up because you always want to stay debt free. At least we did. And so we did that. The next thing we did was put together a spending plan. You know, there's some things you just got to pay. You know, number one, that tithe. Okay. Number two, your house note. Yeah, and then I know people don't think about this, but what comes out of your paycheck every month? Your taxes. I mean, the government's smart. They take it first.
Yeah.
You know, they don't let you send them a check. They take it first, boy. So that you got to write down on your spending plan because that's coming out of your paycheck. Anyway, once you get through with that, now you end up with what we call net spendable income. Now you know what your income is, and now you got to start fitting in these things like house notes, insurance, food, your automobile, any kind of debt on credit card. Hopefully by now they're all gone. You know, if you want to eat out, we call that entertainment. Okay, clothing, savings, medical expenses, dentists and doctors, and those types of things. Miscellaneous things like I got down here, toiletry, cosmetics, beauty, barber. I mean, all those things cost money, you know, laundry, cleaning, allowances and lunches for kids, subscriptions, gifts, cash. If you want to get, back then it was cable or internet. Now it's satellite or whatever. You know, if you want some of that, well, now you could probably budget it in because you're debt free.
But you'll find a lot of that stuff that was so important is
Yeah.
not so important
Not so
anymore.
important.
Exactly.
We don't have much on our TV. Not,
Exactly.
you know.
No, we get minimum.
Well, let me ask you a question then, Bill. Once you became debt free,
Yeah.
and you are debt free as of today,
Yes.
once an individual become debt free, let's look at the book of Proverbs 6. We'll talk about the ant. How the ant gathers in the summer for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it for the individual to begin to plan long-term retirement?
I think it's.
You know, we touched on earlier about the 401k, the thrift savings, the retirement, the Roth and the IRA account. How important is that, or should that be factoring in your budget?
Yes, in fact, you'll notice on my budget sheet there, the 401k is what about number 3? Look up at the top.
Yeah.
Right
Yes.
there, yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, 401 or whatever your company offers. Nowadays, I guess it's basically 401s. That's very important. Maximize it if you can. If you can at first, slowly maximize it.
When we started saving,
Right.
what did we put in our savings each month?
When we started back then, it was $125.
A month.
Yeah. And I had that taken out of my paycheck.
So we wouldn't get
So
it.
we never saw it, you know.
But I've heard people say I don't make enough to save or I don't make enough
$5
to
works,
budget.
yeah.
But anything, $5 a starting point.
I firmly believe, and I think any of these people that teach finances professionally will tell you need about 6 months of expenditures and savings.
Mm-hmm.
I call that we have an account we call emergency account, you know, because pandemic, you don't have a job, Well, who knows when that's going to come back, right? But some people are starting to come back to work now. So that's what, 3 months? Well, there's 3 months. You'd have had your expenses paid. You'd have never been behind on anything. You won't have creditors knocking on the door. And they're going to do that to people that haven't paid. And it's going to happen. So building that up, it takes time. Building that up is very, very important. And again, when it comes time to get a new car, you got cash for it.
As far as retirement, though, you're young. You don't think that's ever going to get here, and it gets here quickly. And when Bill got ready to retire, we were a little concerned about our future. And yet, there again, all that we've been through on this journey, and then the Bible, the verses in the Bible, it's like God has provided for us forever. He expects us to be wise and to save and to put money into a retirement account, but He's not going to quit taking care of us. You've got to depend on God for all of it. But yeah, we were young. We didn't think retirement, and God blessed us with that, with a company that did well. But there's never, like I said, start with $25 a month if that's all you've got. But learn to,
as you get debt free, that's going to free up money.
Yeah.
And
to put into your retirement.
Yeah,
exactly.
and
because I know, Bill, when I was in your shop there, you made mention that how you put in the max in your retirement, and how it increased on its own, and that you just let it sit there, and as a result, you are now enjoying the fruits of your decision.
Exactly.
Now, I often think about, had you not invest in that, and had you not raised it to the maximum at that time, how life would be different for you now.
Oh, gosh. Because, they always say when you retire, your income drops. It does. And ours dropped probably 50%. I was a commissioned salesman and sold $1 million things. So we made some pretty decent money, but we were learned a long time ago to live on a lot less.
Yeah.
So half is no problem.
I hear people make the mistake. I've heard so many people say, well, I'll never get to retire, so I'm not worried about that. And it's like,
yeah, right.
One day you'll have to, whether it's because of physical issues or age and your other company won't let you. Yeah, one day we're all going to, if you live long enough. So you can't have that attitude. You just have to ask God for wisdom. I mean, He'll give it to you. He tells you all over the Bible to give you wisdom if you ask for it. But we have to quit thinking about today and think about tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Yeah. Retirement's very important.
Yeah.
I mean, through this whole thing that's been going on, we've not suffered because we planned for the future.
Yeah, we did.
And we do live under our means. Not so much now, but we did when we had a salary coming in for the future.
I like what you said, living under your means.
Yeah.
Now, I am interpreting that as you're saying that we could raise the bar higher, but we chose to live in a level of where we are content.
Exactly.
And I think that's so important because so often we find ourselves comparing ourselves with others.
They don't do that.
We often find ourselves spending because we can spend.
Exactly.
But it goes back to what you all said, that everything that we own belongs to God.
Right.
To God.
Exactly.
What wisdom, Bill or Sherry, would you give to a young couple who is just starting out, who is hearing you both? And what would be one thing that you would say to them if they really want to change the road that they're on as it relates to their finances?
If they're not in debt at that point, then spend less than you make for a long, long time is always very good advice. I mean, to me, that's right out of the Bible. And,
I also think you've got to be committed, Jonathan. We talked about that before. Just like a good marriage, it takes two people. It takes honesty. It takes hard work.
Yeah.
It takes sometimes letting that other person get what they want, or let their desires be made known, and think about that as a couple. you're building this life together. You're not enemies. You're a team.
Team.
You're a team, and it takes two people. And yeah, I've seen marriages, and I've seen good marriages, and it's finances, and it's the same thing. It's a committed couple that really want to do what God has called them and led them to do, and want to be able to bless others. And we've all been through hard times. I mean, really hard times. We've been through really hard times. But you have a testimony then, and you have a story to tell. And I just encourage you not to give up and not to start blaming each other, but to be a team, and commit together and think long term, but realize that those things are not what makes you happy. It's no.
Serving God is what makes you happy.
And being able to do for others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
One of the questions that often asked is that I'm on board, but my spouse is not on board.
I don't see
How should I respond? I mean,
You got to pray for that person first.
But is the individual who's on board wasting his or her time, or can it still be done? I mean, because you all also are marriage counselors.
Right.
What has been your response to that question?
Don't know if I've ever had it, but
Well, we've had
sort of had it, yeah.
We've had some with real conflict. There again, it sounds so simple, but you've got to commit to each
Yeah.
other. It would be very difficult for one individual
In
to
fact,
do.
a couple of couples I can think of that had that conflict aren't together anymore.
Yeah,
You know, that finances is the number one cause of divorce, period.
yeah.
So if you can't get that right,
I would seek counsel. I would go to somebody like we did, Larry Burkett, or your pastor,
yeah.
Yes.
somebody, and seek counsel and really pray about whatever the issue is. It's keeping you from being a team, a committed couple. Because I can't see one person being able to do this alone. That would cause so much conflict.
When we start these classes in how to make your marriage last forever, it's what we called it. Some of the things I would tell the men and the women is, and it's typically the men that are nervous about attending these classes. Okay, the women are, yes, let's do it,
Yes.
and the men are, man, it's just going to be man bashing. That's not true. I mean, we didn't bash men at all. We worked very hard to help them understand the differences between men and women. And I've always recommended to the young ladies, if he will not attend a seminar or a weekend retreat or anything on how to make your marriage better, I'd be real nervous about marrying that person because they're not committed.
You have to be committed.
And if they're not committed, you're going to have a miserable life. And I don't know what else to say. And we had a few of them that said, okay, this is it. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So, but we hopefully save that marriage, really, But we've had a few of them do that.
It's not easy. It's
Not
not
easy.
easy work, but it's
And it
very
lasts
rewarding.
forever.
Yeah.
It's something you don't do for 6 months. It's something you do the rest of your life.
Rest of your life.
Yeah.
In closing, I would like for Sherry, because the last time I was here, she shared a testimony
Yeah.
that was so touching, but anybody can relate to it, about the kids' school coat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that blesses me because I think that it will bless others, because as we are trusting God,
Right.
God will always manifest himself
Exactly.
if we allow him.
Yes.
If we allow it.
Yes.
But that's the key to
Yes.
if we're trusting God.
Yes.
So could you just share with us briefly that testimony?
Sure. I was married before Bill and I married, and it was a struggle, a real financial struggle, a real difficult marriage. And there was a Christmas time. We were members of a church. There was Christmas time right around winter time when I had 3 children. And winter was coming, and there was no money for coats. No money. It was a real struggle. And so I had a couple from our church call, really didn't know them very well. And after they left with my kids, I thought, is this smart?
Yeah.
But they called and said, do you mind if we pick your kids up, take them to lunch, and just spend some time with them this afternoon? And it's like, no, sure, that's fine. Well, when the kids came home, they all three had a coat, a new winter coat.
Mm-hmm.
And this couple said that God had touched they had no idea my children needed, I had no contact with them really, no idea that my children needed coats. But God had laid it on their heart, and they had brought them coats. So that's one of those love letters from God. I
Yes.
love those love letters because the world we live in, is not an easy one. And so I'll never forget that. That was, I cried because you want coats for your children when the weather's cold. And I know there are a lot of mothers out there that without God, they wouldn't be able to provide for their families either.
Yes.
So that's one of those times. There's
Yes.
so many. But
Yes. That
God
is so true.
provides.
Yes.
Jonathan, I use that story a lot in our classes we did to say, when I talk about credit cards and how bad they are, is we use credit cards and sometimes we get in God's way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that right there, she didn't have a credit card.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Okay. And so she wasn't about to get in God's way. And look what God did. We
Yes.
get in his way, I'll charge it. And that's not smart. God could give it to you. We just don't believe it.
I don't know how much he
But
loves
he
us.
did. He gave it to her.
Yes.
What a testimony.
Yes.
Yeah.
It blesses me. I have really enjoyed my time with you all this evening.
Oh, we love you guys.
It just blesses me. But you said something earlier, and I don't know, did the listeners caught it, but I caught it. You shared earlier that you all had saved, and the Lord prompted you all to give it all away.
Yeah.
I know that I believe that was the genesis of that brought you all to this platform
Probably was.
today.
Yeah.
Because once God recognized that he has our heart,
Right?
Yeah.
and our heart is the meaning our money,
Right.
Yeah.
it causes us to come in the position with him that will allow him to be the God of the El Shaddai in our lives.
Yes.
Right?
And just as Abraham had to offer up his son,
Right.
Exactly.
you gave your entire savings.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying everybody here just do that,
Exactly.
No.
No, it's
but you gave it being prompted
right.
by the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
You gave it by hearing his voice.
Right.
The Bible says his sheep know his voice.
Right.
You gave it because you heard his voice.
Yeah.
And the Bible also say in Proverbs that he who sowed in tears, they shall rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
You sowed in tears. It was hard
It was very hard.
to do that.
Yeah.
But that seed, that sowing was the genesis of where you are today and what God has done in you in your household
I
life
thought of it that
over
way, but
and
that's
over
true. Yeah.
and over and over
Yeah.
and over. Think about it. You all don't want for anything.
No.
You're debt free.
Right.
You
75
are
years old.
the head and not the tail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have been a vehicle to bless others because God knows that he has your heart.
That's it.
And I think that is the message
it is the message.
that is my takeaway today.
Yeah.
That when we surrender all to God, even in the midst of this pandemic,
Right.
Even in the midst.
if we surrender all to God, God will always show up
Oh yes.
and be daddy to
That's
us.
right.
Yes. Yes.
He
Thank
desired to be
goodness.
our heavenly Father.
That's right.
Yeah.
He desired to provide for us. He desired for us to cause him to break the cycle of debt off of our life. But we have to want it.
Yes.
We have to want it.
But our world system. And the Bible said that Satan is the God of this world.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
We're just in here temporarily,
Yeah.
but we should not conform to this world,
Mm-mm.
nor to this world system. And as I have heard your story, as I've heard your principle, it is a reminder to us that we should not conform to this world
Amen.
system.
Exactly.
Romans 12:1 say, be renewed in your mind, in your thinking.
Yeah.
And you have given us, Bill and Sherry, principles that will help us to renew our thinking and to begin to think God's way, because God's way is successful.
Yes.
Yes, it
Joshua
is.
said to meditate upon his word that he will cause us to be successful.
Right.
Exactly.
And what you have given us today, and I am so appreciative of that,
So,
you have given us biblical principles that you are living, that you're living today as we speak in 2020.
yes, we are.
That is helping the body of Christ, and that will continue to help the body of Christ. You are living and leaving a great kingdom legacy. And that should be our prayer.
That's humbling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it
true.
should be our prayer. It
I
should
mean,
be.
it's. I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying. It's
Yes.
It's true. I mean, you have shared stuff with me for how you celebrate Christmas now with your kids.
Right.
How you, and I was sharing with you how you give them a memory
Right.
versus giving them a
Yes.
toy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you expound briefly on that in closing?
Well, we just decided years ago, you know, when they were young, we give them a toy, and the next day they wouldn't even remember where that toy came from.
Yeah.
And we go, this is a waste. So we decided that, Lord willing, and we had the finances, we would make a trip somewhere and build something they would always remember.
Yeah.
And to this day, our grandchildren remember some of those trips we took them on
Mhm.
for Christmas.
Yes.
And or not even at Christmas, other times to celebrate, and that's to me is worth it, because they remember that always. They don't remember what we gave them physically years ago.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, I mean, I don't even remember.
And
what
speaking
I
of trips, and I'm very mindful of the time here, but this goes back to being debt free.
yeah,
Sherry, on my last visit, you mentioned that when you all were going on vacation, and when the money stopped, you
Return.
all would return.
Turn.
Could you share that story? Because many
Sure.
couples, they say, now I have to go on a vacation.
Oh.
We have to go to Six Flags.
yeah,
And briefly, in closing,
Sure.
that story.
I will. We were raised in a family that didn't have much, and we never ever took a
Yeah.
vacation. We didn't know what vacations were, honestly. And we were starting getting out of debt. We were, I guess, at that point, probably out of debt,
Yeah.
but we weren't spending frivolously.
Yes.
And so we would start saving money once a month. And I think when it got up to at this
about
point,
$1,000.
about $1,000 then, we would take a trip. And it was always a driving trip because that was cheaper.
Mhm.
And it was almost always
5
to
people.
Colorado. So we would get in the van and we would go drive to Colorado. And when half the money was gone, we'd turn around and come back home. And that was
Just
our
take a different
vacation.
route.
But that's how we started our vacations was, just until the cash ran out. And it was like, well, that means it's time to turn around and go back and do
Yeah.
the same
Uh-huh.
thing. But the kids remember those. And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything really expensive. It's not about that. I don't think you
I
have
found
to.
out she gets gold fever really.
I could be in the streams looking for gold forever. But it's not about what you're spending or how much, how big the vacation. It's those sweet
Yeah.
times together.
Yes.
It's just so God. That was another God thing. We were on a vacation. We'd never
Right.
ever been on vacations before.
And you know, we never called ahead and made reservations.
No, we just
We just
wandered.
drove until we got, wherever we got. I said, well, let's see if we can find a room.
I loved
And there was
those
always a room. So
times. Sweet and simple. We didn't
Yeah.
spend a lot of money, but it was a sweet time.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh,
Great,
yeah.
great,
Yeah.
great. Well, once again, I have certainly enjoyed this
Yeah.
chat.
I
And
went too.
we're just so blessed that you have opened your home
I appreciate
and have shared your story. And Bill, I know that you said that you have been doing this since '83,
Right.
and I know you and Sharon both are a team where you teach on marriage and on finances.
Yeah.
Are you open if someone would contact us and
Sure.
to sharing your story?
Sure.
And just
course.
going there, we certainly appreciate
Of
that.
course.
Yeah, always.
Because we didn't touch the surface,
Oh,
really.
gosh,
You know,
yeah.
we lived together a long time. We've been married a long time.
Yes.
But yes, we would love
Great.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something else. Is if anybody that sees this, everything we've got on this, and like Cherry said, we only touched on some of it.
Yeah.
I've got it all in files. I can email it to anyone.
Great.
You know, and
I feel like that's why God has us all here, because we have something to give to each other, and we should
Yes.
sure
Yeah.
be willing to share it and be real.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I'm one of those that feel like we all need to be real.
Yes.
oh gosh,
It's
yeah.
like
Yes.
that's not going to happen in my family. It's like
Yes.
we don't
Yes.
say that around here.
Amen. Amen.
No.
All right. Well, I thank you all for your transparency, and I thank you for watching this video today with us. I've been blessed, and I believe that you are blessed also by hearing their story. These are just simple individuals. Simple individuals. They were not born into wealth.
Nope.
They are just like you and I, but they are our brothers and sisters who they have taken the principles of God, and God has honored them. And I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful. Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this opportunity, and those who are hearing this, hearing our voice, your voice, Father. We just pray that their lives will be changed, God, and transformation will come forth.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
God bless you.